We'll be starting in a few moments, so I would invite everyone to take your seats, please. Thank you. So welcome back, everyone, for our last session today. I'd like to thank Imprimerie Nationale for offering the networking break. We've taken a few more minutes because this was indeed the last coffee break or networking opportunity, and by the number of conversations and the animation, I think it was well deserved that we would take one last opportunity to say goodbye, see you again, exchange business cards, and so on. So thank you very much, Imprimerie Nationale. We now come to the concluding panel of our symposium. With our last panel, we will consider the future of air travel from the perspective of security and facilitation. Our moderator for the session is Mr. Vijay Poonoosamy. Vijay is Vice President of International and Public Affairs at Etihad Airways. I've known Vijay for quite a few years now, and I would describe him really as a man for all seasons in aviation. Over the years, he has been involved in every major issue related to air transport, has chaired and taken part in a host of international conferences and fora dealing both with aviation and global economic issues. And he has actively supported the regulatory and diplomatic work of ICAO. Vijay is extremely well positioned to lead this discussion into the future of air travel. I'm very happy to introduce to you Vijay. And Vijay, the floor is all yours.
Merci beaucoup, Denis. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, the final panel, Border Control, Management and Future in Travel. According to the World Tourism Organization, destinations worldwide welcome 598 million international tourists in the first 6 months of this year, 36 million more than in the same period last year. IATA stated 2 days ago that the 4 billion air passengers expected to fly this year are expected to double to 7.8 billion in 2036. With the formidable growth of both passenger numbers and security threats, it is self-evident that much more needs to be done to diligently develop a strategic and holistic roadmap to promote safe, secure, sustainable, and seamless aviation. In line with the UN Security Council Resolutions 2178 and 2309 that reaffirm the importance of border controls to combat terrorism, the interdependent elements of the TRIP strategy demonstrate that a coherent and coordinated approach to a robust traveler identification management is essential. Now, please bear in mind that this timely and topical symposium is intended to provide valuable inputs and guidance to states in their endeavor to implement the ICAO's TRIP strategy. And we are delighted, therefore, to have an incredible panel of experts with us this morning, namely Lauren Uppink, who is the project lead, safe and secure mobility at the World Economic Forum, based in New York. Gerald, Vingal, who is head of Aruba Immigration Service. Ross Greenwood, expert and former Public Directory Chairperson, and Michael Hardin, Director of Policy and Planning, Entry Exit Transformation Office at the US CBP. So for the next 72 minutes, we will have short presentations by the panelists, followed by an interactive discussion. So please join me in warmly welcoming Lauren to the podium. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Vijay, for the introduction, and thank you especially to ICAO for inviting me to share on behalf of the World Economic Forum at this very valuable symposium. It is encouraging to have learned over the last few days of the varied yet very effective efforts being undertaken to achieve the TRIP strategy. And it is a clear indication of the commitment of governments to ensure that passenger facilitation is undertaken in such a way to not only improve efficiencies in identity management, but to do so in a manner that ensures security of both travelers and countries themselves. To start with, I'd just like to introduce the World Economic Forum, our organization. It's the International Organization for Public-Private Cooperation. Having been in operation for 5 decades now, the forum has been most known for its annual meeting, which takes place in Davos every year and brings together world leaders from across the globe, including the most influential CEOs and a large community of heads of state. And we do this for the purpose of advancing shared issues concerning the state of the world. As such, it has always maintained its core characteristics of being global, completely independent, impartial, and future-orientated. In doing so, it strives to build consensus and momentum towards addressing those issues that we find globally challenging. Over the past few years, the forum has entered a new phase, shifting from facilitating this interaction to really trying to drive impact through our platform approach. In particular, it uses its ability to bring together these public and private sector leaders to focus on anticipating and understanding the major changes we see driven by the fourth industrial revolution. Unlike previous industrial revolutions sparked by the onset of steam, then the benefits of mass production through electrification, and finally automation of production, the fourth revolution is driven by the emergence of cyber-physical systems, the Internet of Things, for example, and most importantly, the exponential number of ways that these new cyber-physical technologies interact with each other. Additionally, we recognize that some of the major challenges of our time, such as food security, urbanization, energy, and climate change, are not those that can be solved by independent actors or entities, but require cooperation amongst stakeholders, and more so than ever before across fields of expertise. Dialogue is required across domains, as I said, and leaders must inspire global society to work together to make sustained, positive, and systemic change. Importantly, as an organization, we're looking into the questions of how society adapts to the emerging technologies that are changing at a pace never seen before in human history. For governments in particular, how does policy making adapt to this new pace of change and become an enabling element of technological adoption rather than a lagging indicator? How does policy making ensure that emerging technologies are used for positive outcomes rather than negative? On a whole, a number of challenges and opportunities exist in the aviation, travel, and tourism industry, not least in the large contributions it makes to job creation and economic development globally. As many speakers alluded to throughout this conference, the industry shows no measurable signs of slowing down, with international arrivals expected to grow by 50% to 1.8 billion by 2030. However, current constraints on the industry could prevent us from harnessing the economic potential of the surge in international travel. Currently, infrastructure at many airports is not sufficient for these potential number of travelers, and this will have negative impacts on the ability of countries to harness the potential economic development it promises. So the question we as the World Economic Forum are asking in this sector beyond understanding the capacity of government and industries to face these challenges or take advantage of these opportunities, is how might emerging technologies impact the cross-border movement of people in the next 15 years. There is no doubt the aviation, travel, and tourism industry has been at the forefront of digital innovation, changing the way we travel over recent years. However, we believe the sector should brace itself for a further wave of digital disruption, which goes beyond mere automation of processes, but technologically enhancing the implementation of complex tasks through the utilization of machine learning, for example. We have a dedicated working group of representatives from government, industry, and our partners at ICAO, ACI, IATA, and WTTC. The most prominent technologies our working group have identified that will impact on the identity and border management environment, of course, include biometrics and advanced data analytics, but eventually distributed ledger technology and machine learning. It is evident, however, from our discussion with government partners and from the presentations given here over the last 3 days, that advanced technologies do already exist. But often it's a question of policy and political decisions as to how these may be utilized for improved security and facilitation. The two core questions our working group believe these technologies can help to address is, one, the verification. Is this person who he or she claims to be? And secondly, is this person safe? These questions can be answered with different processes and technologies, but we believe the pace at which we need to be able to answer these questions in airports, in particular, requires a shift in how stakeholders collaborate with each other. We believe we can broaden efforts by including a broader range of industry partners, by including partners from across sectors such as the financial institutions, hospitality, and technology to interact with agencies responsible for facilitation and security. But more importantly, we think there is an opportunity to leverage the more proactive participation of passengers themselves. Incentives for the passenger to proactively contribute to security efforts are numerous, especially for the frequent traveller who spends many hours moving through screening and border control processes in the airport journey. This picture of the potential traveller journey of the future details many opportunities in the travel continuum to provide a larger range of data to entities than is already granted. Different compilations of data, such as biographic or travel itinerary data, are provided to airlines, customs, visa agencies, and hotels, to name a few. But no opportunity currently exists for the passenger to provide that information as a whole up front for any one actor in the continuum. We are exploring opportunities with our government and industry working group members for passengers to willingly provide this information in advance of traveling, to enable authorities to make advanced individualized risk assessments for low-risk passengers. Much like dedicated bilateral trusted traveller programs that facilitate the movement of a small set of registered or trusted travellers through airports, we believe there could be the opportunity to do this on a larger scale, essentially reducing the size of the haystack. Many stakeholders are dedicating resources to improving the experience within the airport, and our partners at IATA are championing this through the One ID concept. But we also see the opportunity for this to be extended beyond the airport and border journey to include opportunities for seamlessness for services in the broader tourism environment. API and IAPI systems have been discussed a lot over the last few days, and certainly it strongly enhances the ability of authorities to sift out potential bad actors. But with the anticipated surge of passengers over the next decade, will this be enough? Do authorities have sufficient time to accurately verify all travellers, let alone accurately determine their level of risk while trying to process indefinitely long queues in security screening and border control? Are we able to leverage what many industry technology companies have learned in terms of machine learning and advanced data analytics to enhance this risk assessment process and move towards the espoused ideal of individualized risk-based assessment? So we ask again, in the future, as individuals personalize every element of their daily lives through providing personal and preferences data, from the setting of the lighting and temperatures in their house to the time their taxi arrives at their front door, could they become a central actor in the security process? Could we build a layer of technology into the travel journey that allows passengers to opt in and share their relevant information for a time-bound period for the purposes of personalizing and improving their travel experience? We may find today that data privacy legislation prevents us from accessing this wealth of information. But for the benefit of expedited travel, a more personalized, comfortable, and seamless experience across the traveler journey, we believe the incentive exists for passengers to share it with us out of choice. As a multi-stakeholder working group, we continuously seek out opportunity to support and strengthen the efforts and achievements of our partners, and we welcome the inputs from all government agencies. As we all anticipate what our collective future may look like, we'd welcome dialogue with any states about how we can leverage the forum's platform to advance our shared interests. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Ladies and gentlemen, please, I would invite you to note any questions or any comments you'd like to make, either by emailing them to me or at the appropriate time later by raising your hands, and we can get a more interactive discussion on some of the issues which have been raised. So I'd like now to actually invite Gerald Vingal, who is head of Aruba Immigration Service, to make his presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gerald Vingal, and as of January 2014, I'm the director of the Migración Aruba, actually the organization that is responsible for border control in Aruba. The happy flow concept essentially is facilitating a quick process of passengers, but today my presentation of the happy flow, the commercial and the commercial aspects are out of the scope. I'm going to focus on the security aspects of the happy flow. The layout of my presentation is as follows. I'll touch Aruba in a nutshell. Afterwards, I'm going to talk about the organization Migración Aruba. Then follows the ICAO Facilitation program, and under there, I'm going to explain how Happy Flow met the requirements of the ICAO Facilitation program. Then I'm going to touch the security benefits introduction of the e-gates, the security benefits introduction of the Happy Flow, and the conclusion. First of all, I was here in 2015 with the MRTD conference at the headquarters here. I met a person from Great Britain, and when I told him I was from Aruba, he asked me if there was a country named Caramba. I said, I wasn't that amused, but I'm for the ones who don't know where Aruba is and everything else, I'm going to, in short, touch Aruba. Aruba is an island located in the southeastern Caribbean Sea, 50 miles north of Venezuela. Aruba measures 32 kilometers, 20 miles long from its northwestern to its southeastern end, and 10 kilometers across at its widest point. Aruba is one of the 4 countries that form the Kingdom of the Netherlands, along with the Netherlands and the islands Curaçao and Sint Maarten. Collectively, Aruba and the other Dutch islands in the Caribbean are often called the Dutch Caribbean. Citizens of these countries are all Dutch nationals and carry a Dutch European passport. The official language of Aruba is Papiamento. It's a mixture of Portuguese, West African languages, Dutch, English, and Spanish. About 90% of our population speaks Dutch, Papiamento, English, and Spanish. The island's economy has been dominated by 3 main industries: tourism, alloy export, and petroleum refining. Aruba's airport is called Queen Beatrix International Airport and is managed by the Aruba Airport Authority. About 3/4 of the Aruban gross national product is earned through tourism or related activities. Most tourists are from the United States, predominantly from the Northeast US. Other tourists from the Netherlands, South America, mainly Venezuela and Colombia. Aruba receives per year about 1 million tourists. Migración Aruba, it's a very young organization because it has been founded the 1st of September, last September, so not even 2 months. Besides the border control, the organization got the responsibility to find illegals on the island, mainly in the labor force. To give you an idea how much people are processed, you can see on the screen, we processed in 2015 about 2,721,056 people actually, And in 2016, 2,576,845. I say people because it's not only tourists, we got also residents, resident aliens, and crew. The requirements, actually, entry requirements, are actually the same as most countries. As you can see, valid travel document. If there is imposed period of entry prohibition not expired yet, you can't enter. A valid visa, embarkation, disembarkation card, return or transit ticket, hotel accommodation or another address, financial means or a guarantor letter. The things that by law are restricted that will restrict people from leaving Aruba is a valid travel document, of course, valid visa for country of destination, person of interest to local authorities, either being police, secret service, if someone has a debt with the Aruban government, especially tax, and if you have a situation of unaccompanied traveling minor. The ICAO, the principles of the ICAO Facilitation Program are: ensure minimum time for border control, cause minimum inconvenience with the application of control requirements, foster exchange of information between states, operators, and airports, develop effective information technology to increase the efficiency and effectiveness, obtain optimal levels of security and compliance with the law. The strategy of the ICAO Facilitation Program aims to seek new ways to process passengers with minimum intrusion into individual privacy, ensure integrity of border controls, improve facilitation and expedite the movement of low-risk passengers, automate inspection controls while still achieving a high level of compliance. The requirements to achieve the above are: cooperation, particularly in relation to intelligence exchange, is extremely important. The role of high-quality intelligence is a key ingredient in effective enforcement. Benefits can be gained from the efficient use of information technology. Automated border clearance facilities should target and facilitate low-risk passengers. The Aruba Happy Flow is in sync with the aforementioned elements of the ICAO Facilitation Program. The Aruba Happy Flow was launched on May the 28th of 2015. The Happy Flow concept is a departure-oriented process, but as part of the Happy Flow project, e-gates were introduced at arrival as well. The Happy Flow concept is the result of a public-private cooperation between the government of Aruba, the government of the Netherlands, the Aruba Airport Authority, KLM, and the Schiphol Group. Happy Flow makes the passenger clearance process faster, simpler, and safer, linking the public process of border control and the private process of passenger transport to form the smart border passage of a passenger flow, a so-called Happy Flow. So Happy Flow uses facial recognition technology as the basis of a single passenger token. Happy Flow removes the need for passengers to present their passport and boarding pass at multiple stages of the airport journey. Right now you can see an overview of the Happy Flow concept. You see there is a passenger touchpoint layer, that's the most above layer. You have a workflow orchestration, and you have an alert generation, and which for the immigration department, the alert generation is the most important part. If you can see at the end, totally on the bottom at the right, you see written RADEX, passenger data, and others. RADEX is the border control management system in use by Migración Aruba, and has been developed and is maintained by a local company by the name of Gamma IT Solutions. With regards to Happy Flow and e-gates, Gamma IT Solutions is in partnership with Visionbox, a Portuguese-based company. Visionbox is responsible for the development of all hardware and software of the Happy Flow and the e-gates. Right now I'm going to explain the whole journey of the Happy Flow process. The first touch point is when you get at the airport and you want to check in. You have a biometric enrollment. You come up to the kiosk. The boarding pass is read to retrieve and display the passenger flight information. Afterward, the passport is read to display the biographical information of the passenger. And then the camera in the kiosk captures an image of the passenger to match with the face image stored in the passport chip. After you have done that, after you have checked in, you walk up through the touch point 2, that is the baggage drop. At the baggage drop, a biometric correlation with the rightful owner of the baggage is being done. It performs a one-on-n matching of the live biometric of the passenger against all enrolled passengers, so that you're unique. And it will print the appropriate baggage tags, so you can put the strip on your luggage to continue your travel. Afterwards, you go to the third touch point, and that is the border control. It just makes the same. Your biometric will be in the gate, and you just step up to the gate, and it matches the biometry, and the gate will open, and you can continue. And at last, the self-service. I'm sorry for the word border. It has to be self-service control, self-service boarding, I mean. That's when you go to the plane, you just, again, there is a gate, your biometric, you stand to the gate, it will take 3 seconds, and you can continue your journey and go board the plane. It provides airline personnel with information on the passengers that will board the plane. The MRTD authentication. So it is secure, quick, and easy, the system. The system security is enforced by performing authenticity checks on the MRTD. The MRTD is validated by optical and electronic verification processes. High-performance face capture mechanism ensure the live object is identified as the rightful owner. The system security. Passengers must be biometrically cleared to cross the physical barriers to access a secure area, either being immigration or the boarding. Conditions for the use of the e-gates, an e-passport. The passport must have a chip. It is not for visa-required nationalities. The e-gates can't read visas. Since a visa is not a guarantee of entrance, the decision was taken to process visa-required nationals by the border control officers at the booth. High-risk nationalities not allowed to use the e-gates. It's only for low-risk passengers. The high-risk nationals need to be submitted to an in-depth border control. What were the security benefits of the introduction of the e-gates? Those were, like in most of the cases, 90% of all travelers visiting Aruba are considered low risk and will use the e-gates. The biggest part of these 90% low-risk travelers are people who visit Aruba on a regular basis. We have travelers who have been coming to Aruba each year for over 10, 20, 30, and even 40 years. It's crazy to submit those people each time to the same in-depth control, so they are encouraged to use the e-gates. Border control officers. Border control officers have more time to do a more thorough border control of the remaining 10% high-risk travelers. As a result, a dramatic increase in the number of visitors who were denied the entrance. Since the introduction of the e-gates in 2015 at arrival, on 2 occasions, a person who was sought by authorities was detected and stopped by the e-gates. And we experienced, like I said before, a dramatic increase in the number of visitors who were denied the entrance, an increase of 332% compared to 2014. 2014, we didn't have the gates yet. If you see 2013, we had 305 people entrance denied. In 2014, 351, and by introducing the e-gates, the rate went up to 1,517, and in 2016, 1,444. Other security benefits of introduction of the e-gates is there was an increased motivation of the border control officers, because before that they were like processing everybody kind of at the same time without having something to focus on. Right now, the 10% high-risk nationals, they are more encouraged to do a more in-depth control because they have more time for it. It improved the profiling skills of border control officers. And the e-gates based on biometric face recognition can't be fooled by lookalikes twins that we experience, because when someone has, if a border control officer at the booth isn't sure if the person is the person on the passport, they put it in the e-gate and see if the person is really the person on the passport. Security benefits of introduction of the happy flow. This is the moment a person who is on an alert list enrolls at the check-in kiosk, so at check-in, the first touch point, the border control officers at touch point 3 gets a notification. This creates the possibility to arrest discreetly out of the view of the public, instead of arresting someone in the check-in hall where there's a lot of tourists. We can wait for the person coming at the gate at the immigration at touch point 3 to make the arrest. And it gives, oh yeah? I'm sorry. It gives plenty of time to prepare for the arrest with the involvement of the agencies responsible for the alert. In conclusion, before the introduction of the Happy Flow and the e-gates, the airport experienced days on which there are long lines of travelers to be processed. Since the introduction of the e-gates, these problems are almost non-existent. The introduction of the e-gates wasn't easy. In the beginning, a lot of skepticism about the Happy Flow and e-gates. People were afraid to lose their jobs. Today, the e-gates are considered a blessing. Since the introduction of the e-gates, the waiting time has been reduced from an average of 1.5 hours to an average of 20 minutes. And the e-gates created a more effective and efficient way of border control, which led to an increase in the motivation of border control officers and increase in the profiling skills. As a result, the number of people who were denied the entrance has drastically increased. Since this was my first presentation ever in front of a big crowd, I didn't put my contact information on the presentation. For those interested, after the session, I'm available to hand over my business card. In closing, tao honor y placer di por papia pabuso. Danke pa sa atención in English. It was an honor and pleasure for me to speak to you today. Thank you for your attention. And I would like to bombini you on Aruba. Welcome to Aruba. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Gerald. We really didn't want to cut into your happy flow of your presentation. So please welcome Ross Greenwood for his 12 minutes.
Good morning again, everybody. I'm going to be talking to you about the project for strengthening border management in the Caribbean region, and in particular one activity of that program. So it's a program funded by the Government of Canada, and the program includes the development of an ICAO trip guide on border control management. So the ambition of the guide is not quite to reach the point that Lauren described of the engaging in the new opportunities to apply technology in border control, but to more to take stock of where we are at the moment, and using the exemplar of something like Happy Flow in Aruba to provide some kind of guidance for states on what the ICAO traveller identity framework offers to reach the kind of integrated solution that has been applied in Aruba. So there's been a number of activities through the project which are listed there on the slide, but in particular we're focusing on talking about this guide on border control management. Yep, thank you. So of course the context for ICAO and the authority for the involvement in the space is Chapter 3 and now Chapter 9 in Annex 9 Facilitation, but also the intersection with Chapter 4 dealing with access control in the Annex 17, dealing with aviation security. And of course we've heard also over the last few days about the relevant UN Security Council resolutions in relation to counter-terrorism and other transnational crime. We've also heard over the past few days about the ICAO TRIP Strategy, And the ICAO TRIP strategy includes 2 elements of inspection systems and tools and interoperable applications that are primarily concerned with border control management, and of course, therefore, they are the focus of the guide. So we have a draft guide, and the draft guide introduces as a unifying concept this little snowman. And the little snowman is meant to represent that the identification of travellers is only undertaken in order to inform a risk assessment of travellers. That's the responsibility of states. The responsibility of states is to make a decision about whether travel should be allowed to commence, whether travel should be allowed to continue, whether entry should be allowed into the state, whether stay in the state should continue, and whether a traveller will be allowed to depart a state at the end of that cycle within a travel continuum. But as new information becomes available, the identification of travellers and the continuing risk assessment is repeated throughout the traveller journey. So Lauren mentioned the travel continuum, and we've had the travel cycle described in different ways over the past few days of the conference. So to the guide, the structure of the guide, I'm not going to talk through each of the sections in the guide. The core of the guide is 7 technical topics describing national border inspection systems and tools, and 6 technical topics describing interoperable applications. So border inspection systems and tools in the ICAO language means systems and tools that are using the travel document and the travel document interface with border control systems. And interoperable application, and those inspection systems and tools are national. They're applied by individual states. The interoperable applications, on the other hand, facilitate the exchange of data between states largely. So they're the mechanisms by which data are fresh data to inform a traveller identification and fresh data to inform the traveller risk assessment are delivered into the national border system for a state to make a decision about whether travel should be allowed to commence, whether travel should be allowed to continue, whether entry should be allowed, whether stay in the country, in the state should continue, and ultimately authorising that departure. So these are the topics. The new Chapter 9 that's been adopted into Annex 9 introduces for the first time an endorsement of electronic travel systems, the Electronic Travel Authority that was pioneered by Australia in the lead up to the 2000 Olympic Games. So it was introduced in 1996 or 97. And has subsequently been adopted and adapted in a number of countries. The ESTA system, the ETA system ESTA system in the United States, ETA system in Canada, systems in Sri Lanka, Vietnam, and many other countries in the world. So that kind of acceptance and endorsement by the border control community in the world is now reflected in Chapter 9 of the new Annex 9, which also brings together the API and PNR material, which was previously in Chapter 3. The next topic that we talk about is document readers. Document readers are obviously the important interface for extracting the data from machine-readable travel documents and electronic machine-readable travel documents, and we cover some of that in that topic. We deal with biometric and identity verification and biometric identity verification, the one-to-one comparisons that allow us to confirm the identity of the traveller, to allow our risk assessment to proceed. And of course our risk assessment includes the application of national and international watch lists. So the UN sanctions list is an example of an international watch list. The United States has a very highly developed national watch list program with many millions of targets, possibly the best example of that. We talk about the importance of maintaining entry and departure databases of travellers. Not all countries implement exit control. We're going to hear from the United States shortly about the efforts of the United States to establish a full exit control. Once exit control is in place, you can have a reconciliation between arriving and departing travellers, which gives you a view of who is in the country at any one moment. It's a powerful tool for border control in those countries that are able to achieve that. And finally, under inspection systems and tools, we make a discussion of automated border control to reach the kind of situation that Aruba are in. Delivering information earlier in the travel journey, we've heard a lot about API and interactive API over the last few days, less about PNR and the rich data that is available from PNR. So we're discussing the application of both of those interoperable applications in the guide. I'm not going to talk again about e-passport PKI or authentication and what it adds to the assurance of travel, but we discuss that in the guide. And of course that and the searches of lost and stolen databases provide a foundation for using the biometric information that's on the e-passport to undertake a biometric identity verification. So we cover that in our guide as well. And then finally, the international watch list. Now, of course, the application of all of these technological tools assist states in reaching a situation where they can make a reliable traveller identification to inform a sound traveller risk assessment. But the application of technology, despite what we might see in the hall outside by the fancy toys that are available that our vendors have described to us over the last few days and which we can see demonstrated outside, they're nothing without a coherent national strategy, a coherent purpose in border control management. And we also need organisational capability, human capability and capacity in our border agencies. The application of technology is not going to take us to effective solutions in border control management. So at the beginning and the end of our guide, bookending the technical topics, we try and stress the importance of governance frameworks, strategy, national policy as a response to the environment faced by the state and some of those human factors. So that's the guide that we've written. We have a draft of the guide at the moment. We'll be presenting the draft to the International Capacity Building Working Group of the ICAO TRIP tomorrow, and we'll be validating the guide at the regional seminar in Jamaica at the end of the month. So that's me done, and my time is now up. If you'd like to contact me, my contact details are there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ross. Can I now please invite you to welcome Michael Hardin for his presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. I want to thank fellow panelists and ICAO for inviting me. I hadn't been to Montreal in some time, and I'd forgotten what a beautiful city it is. One of the